Welcome to AutoSuccess Cyber Corner, the podcast for auto dealer cybersecurity. I'm Kyle Alexander, and this is episode 9, Uncommon Malware Events.
This podcast is brought to you by Proton Dealership IT. When your team is focused on selling and servicing vehicles, who is focused on keeping your systems secure? With a 24/7 365 operation, Proton can monitor, detect, and respond to potential network or cyber issues. Sleep easy knowing your dealership is covered.
Sean Patronis, Director of Information Security with Reynolds and Reynolds, and the CISO for Proton is back to chat with me today. Sean, thanks for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again.
So for this episode, we are talking about some uncommon malware events today because recently Proton had to help fix an attack that didn't necessarily fall under the common malware attacks that we're seeing around a lot of dealerships today. So first things first, I kind of want to set the record straight on common malware attacks. What is considered a common malware attack at a dealership today?
Sure. So that changes from year to year. Common malware attacks depends on what the methods the bad guys are using. So this year might be different than next year. This month might be different than next month. There's some commonalities between all of them. And it's kind of a cycle. Sometimes we'll see, maybe 10 years ago, we might have saw the types of malware that were attacks that we were seeing were exploiting vulnerable software that might be exposed to the internet. And so while that's still part of most cyber attacks and most malware scenarios, that was the initial method that the attack began. So in the past probably 4 or 5 years, the number one attack method has been phishing. So sending an email that's got a bad link to it, and they'll click on it and they'll download a malicious payload, and then the attack begins from there. But there's still some percentage that's not in that common scenario. So as we develop better defenses, the bad guys change direction. So it's a cat and a mouse game. They change, we have to adapt, and then it's just a big cycle. So, recently we've seen two different attacks that haven't been the primary method of malware attacks. So, or less traditional for now, I guess we can say that if you want to use a traditional word. So the two that we've seen that we haven't seen as much that have gotten a few folks in this particular scenario, there was old school social engineering phone call. So just somebody picking up a phone, calling a end user at the dealership and says, "Hey, I'm Microsoft. I need to help fix your computer. I'm going to send you a link. Click on this link, and then we'll go from there." So straight up verbal social engineering. Somebody who's really good and a smooth talker can get somebody convinced that, hey, we need to help. And they may use information like, "Hey, I'm your IT support team. I need access to your VPN account so I can fix it. I know that you're at this dealership location, you're this salesperson or whomever you are." And they use, publicly accessible information to go to learn about that person, to convince them that they're a person of authority. So it's, pretexting that they are somebody else that they're not. So that's the one that we've seen occasionally that'll get pretty far because, humans tend to be trusting in nature. Another one that we've seen that's been pretty unique in recent times is websites being compromised. So maybe a vendor website that you go to as an employee, and maybe you're clicking on a search on their website and a CAPTCHA pops up. And I know you've seen these CAPTCHAs before. They want to prove that you're a human and not a robot, right? They may be clicking a link, select some pictures of bicycles or something like that. Or just click this other thing. Well, there's this new CAPTCHA that we've seen lately that you go into a website, you went there on your own, you're doing some searching, and it says, "Hey, prove you're not a robot," and hit Control C on your keyboard, hit the Start key plus R, and then paste, and then run. And basically what that's doing is having you copy something off a web page that's invisible, pasting it into your computer, running it, and that downloads a malicious payload and starts an attack. So it seems like you're doing steps to prove you're a human because they're convincing you and you're used to doing this on other websites. and then you end up installing some malicious software on your computer and pivots into an attack. So that just has been prevalent over the past probably 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, social engineering and those and that CAPTCHA attack are both the newest, less common attacks.
Got it. So for this situation you had to handle last year, did it fall under that phone attack where it starts over the phone, or did it fall under the reCAPTCHA situation?
Yeah, the CAPTCHA one is a brand new one. I just want to bring that up because it's kind of in front of my mind since we just helped some customers with that and helped the industry overall. The social engineering attack, the phone call attack, was kind of a novel one at the time, and I suppose there's protections that user could have had, or that the company could have had in place that would have prevented that from getting too far, but it got further than it should have.
Gotcha. Let's dive into maybe some of the differences between these attacks. Phishing being the common one, again, social engineering and this new reCAPTCHA kind of malware attack. What are maybe some of the similarities and more so the differences between these three types of malware events?
Sure. The similarities are all pretty common. In the end, they're trying to gain access to your secured information, your personal information, gain access to your endpoints and your servers to eventually execute a ransomware attack or something to extort money out of you. So that's how they're all similar, because the end goal is all the same. The difference is the initiation, how they're getting to their initial foothold into your dealership network or into your dealership employees or accounts. And so with the social engineering attack, they're looking on LinkedIn, trying to understand who are the people with authority at the company who may have access with higher levels to access to money, and trying to learn what they can about them, and then find phone numbers and call them and convince them that they're there to help and hand over information. So that's a little different because there's a lot more human touch. It's not as automated. It's not as widespread. It's very targeted to certain individuals that are going to be the authority individuals at a dealership. Whereas the reCAPTCHA attack, it's different. It's more widespread. It's just going to collect as many people clicking on a link on a website or trying to search something on a website and type the wrong thing in. They're just trying to get as much scale as possible, collect as many passwords as possible, usernames as possible, and then maybe resell that on a marketplace somewhere. So maybe that's their end goal is to sell to other bad guys, I guess, on the reCAPTCHA side, or infect as many businesses as possible and do a massive attack all at once. And social engineering is very targeted, looking directly at one individual or two individuals at a dealership that have authority.
Out of my own kind of curiosity, talking about the social engineering malware event specifically, have you seen those be more effective per se because there is a little bit of that human interaction element involved?
Yeah, I would say in our, I guess, research and knowledge and experience, that when somebody's really good, a threat actor is really good at social engineering, they're more successful than somebody just spraying and praying that they're going to get access to a bunch of endpoints and usernames and passwords. Because it's so targeted, they've done their research. Just like with anything, if you do your research, you're going to be likely more successful, when you take the test. So if you're studying for a test and you're learning everything you can and you're good at what you do, you're going to be more successful a higher percentage of the time. And now, they're combating against hopefully a better trained associate. So, people who are on the finance side of dealerships or the CFOs or something like that, or dealer principals. Hopefully, they understand that they're a target, and so they maybe are a little more wary than, say, a brand new employee that's the janitor, or even a brand new salesperson that you just hired that maybe hasn't been in the dealership business as much, and they're less of a target, right? Because they don't have as much money or access to authority. So yeah, I think that's probably a true statement. They're more successful when they do the verbal social engineering, phone call social engineering. Now, what could throw that off is if they have an accent or something like that that's not traditional that they're expecting. So say you're a U.S. dealer and it sounds like this person has a very thick, Indian accent or Chinese accent or something like that, Russian accent, what you name it, then they may be less trusting. But if they are convincing enough and have a good Western accent, and they say the right things and they know the right vendors and the right words to say, it can be very, very convincing.
Interesting. I want to touch on something else you kind of mentioned a few minutes ago, talking about some of the security measures that could have been taken to help prevent this. And we're talking mainly about password protection here. Just how important is password protection in this non-typical, uncommon malware scenario?
Well, it's super important. So, what could have stopped that particular attack that ended up, resulting in some type of a ransomware for that customer, or a financial funds fraud transaction issue, is if they had multi-factor authentication enabled. So, in that particular scenario, somebody was social engineered with their username, got their username and password, and the threat actor connected to a VPN. That's a virtual private network. It's how you can remotely connect into a dealership business and pretend like you're be on the network with your laptop, but you could be anywhere in the world while you connect to this. So that particular user had access to a lot of dealership files in the network, a lot of financial files, and basically gave that connectivity over to a bad guy. Because they didn't have multi-factor authentication, like a code you have to type in from your phone after you type your username and password, the bad guy was able to VPN in to their dealership network and go around like they're that dealership employee and see every file that dealership employee had access to, every network device it had access to. It could even remote desktop into other machines that it had access to, that employee had access to. So if one simple addition of multi-factor authentication would have stopped that bad guy, at least on subsequent connections. What we ended up learning was this bad guy, because we weren't called in until after, they weren't our customer yet. They just had some weird, strange things happening. That bad guy had been connecting for like 2 or 3 weeks into their dealership network and poking around.
Wow.
Because that person's username and password was given verbally over the phone, and they had no MFA. Let's just play the scenario back slightly, and let's say they did get social engineered to give the username and password, and they had MFA. Maybe they ended up giving the MFA code once to that user, to that threat actor, and maybe they got in once, but when they disconnected and tried to reconnect, they'd have to call the user again to get the MFA code. Now, maybe that could have worked some more. I mean, there's always ways around, and the bad guys who are good social engineer actors, they're going to be convincing enough. But it would have given more time for her to think about, hey, what did I do wrong? Something's not right here. Why do they keep on calling me, or something like that? And maybe could have escalated to their internal IT teams or their security team. So yeah, that's one simple way that they could have done it. Or if somebody's watching these logs of where people are remotely connecting into the dealership, the logs would have showed that they're coming in from a different country that's not the United States. So that's a red flag, right? That's something that your IT team should monitor. If you see connectivity coming from North Korea or Russia or somewhere that's not your home location, your home countries, then that's a red flag to investigate. And so they could have saw that as well, but they weren't looking at it.
Gotcha. So given that this was not your common malware event, maybe what advice would you give to dealers about training their employees to act more as their own cybersecurity defender or human firewall, if you will, and make smarter choices about password security and just overall cybersecurity?
It always goes back to some level of training. That's one major component. Under making your employees aware, doing your security awareness training. And a lot of places will only want to do that like once a year. So I would recommend that you do smaller trainings more frequently, so you have more touch points where security gets put back into the front of their mind of, hey, I'm responsible. I need to help secure the business just like everybody else does. I need to make sure that I have good password hygiene. I'm not sharing my passwords. Nobody should ask them verbally for their password. If they are a person of authority, that's their IT team or their help desk or whatever, they should never ask you for a password. They should be able to reset your password for you. And they should be able to use their back-end tools to help fix a problem with your account, let's say. But you should never just verbally give your password to somebody who purports to be helping you over the phone. And if your IT company that you hired is doing that and asking you for your passwords, you should push back a little bit. So that's one way. So being a human firewall, not giving out that information that you shouldn't be giving out. Another way is to enable multi-factor authentication for your emails, for your remote access connections. And if you look at the FTC safeguards rule, it kind of lays that out anyway. So everything in the FTC safeguards rules are pretty good ways to help protect your dealership. They're not like super Byzantine, though people may feel that way. They're really, really good recommendations, and they're not even as secure as you could be. It's just some baselines to start. So, MFA, password security, making sure the security awareness training happens for all your associates and helping them understand what their responsibility is and how everybody can help the business and themselves. Because most of these things translate to personal practices as well, like your banking information. You should protect your banking information with a good username and password that's different than anything else, and multi-factor authentication. And if your bank doesn't use multi-factor authentication for you to access your own personal bank account, you should probably find a different bank. So all the same things you do to protect your own personal accounts, you should do for your business accounts as well.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining me, Sean.
Hey, thank you for having me.